what I aim to do is to retrace our steps from where we came back down to Plym Bridge and beyond towards Marsh Mill, and follow the course of the canal and see where it goes and tell its story. So follow me and we'll see what's going to happen to it. The weir behind me was probably constructed around about 1723 to supply water to the Leat that later became the canal. There is one slight problem. By my estimation, the head of water here is actually lower than the canal. So was this actually the supply of the water? I don't know. Maybe, it's only conjecture, only a theory, that if they use water from the Horrobrook to work the water wheels in the quarry, could they not also have used the water from the Horrobrook to feed the canal? And maybe there's one or two other feet along the way that we'll have a look at later on.
The trench exiting Can Quarry looks very much like a leat. It becomes lost in the spoil that forms the base of the viaduct. It must be remembered that the Tavistock Railway was a late addition in the 1850s, and the brick viaduct replaced an earlier Brunel wooden structure. We can pick up the line of the leat further along the path as we follow the river Plym downstream. At some point, the leat is culverted in a large concrete pipe. When the piping was installed, it is unclear, but the use of the material may provide some insight. The piping continues on for a couple of 100 metres before it ends, and the canal continues in a squelchy mess. As I walked along the path, the old set sleepers were in evidence. These sets were made out of slate, as it makes sense to use local materials. The tramway was set at 4 foot 6 inches, known as the Dartmoor gauge, as opposed to the standard gauge of 4 foot 8.5 inches. Judging how shallow the canal is now shows how much silting has occurred. The canal was originally a leat to power the water wheel at Marsh Mill. In 1829 the leat had been widened because a spur from the Dartmoor tramway was unable to service the quarry at that time. That is, until a spur was added in 1839, using the canal towpath. Emerging from underneath the railway embankment is a stream that has run down from Can Woods. It seems to feed the canal. Getting close to Plym Bridge is this adit, which yielded lead and silver between 1824 and 1825. It was opened when ore was discovered, when they started work converting the leat into a canal. The original width of the canal is indicated here. It was probably about 2 meters wide, or thereabouts.
Well, I've reached Plym Bridge now, and it's very much doggy heaven, so you can hear all the dogs barking. They get quite excited about coming to the woods, and why not? What a lovely environment to be in. But at this stage, there are 1 or 2 other features that seem to have cropped up that are worth examining.
Here, at the railway arch at Plym Bridge, is another bridge which carried the Lee Moor tramway along the inclined plane. Adjacent is a large pool, now silted, which formed a lagoon for the canal, it seems. On the other side of the road there seems to be another wet area. At Plym Bridge, the canal is taken underneath the road through this arched tunnel and immediately turns left into the lagoon. It is lost from view for a while as the path continues on. The canal re-emerges on the other side of the Leamore tramway embankment slope. The girder suggests the bridge has rusted through and the thick sleepers are unsafe too. However, the canal passes under a tramway and joins the pathway again. Other girders suggest there was a structure built over the canal. Here are the remains of the stables. And at this point, the wagons would have been unhitched from the incline railway. The journey to Plymouth would have continued with a horse drawing the wagons.
Reading from Ernie's book here, Leamore tramway accident. Now, in September the 4th, 1865, from local intelligence, a serious accident occurred on Friday last on the tram road of the Leamore Clay Works. One horse was killed on the spot, a man seriously injured on the head. 4 trucks were smashed, some being thrown on end and some having wheels and axles broken, while the clay bricks which were laden were scattered in all directions. The noise was heard 2 miles away at Plym Bridge. Presumably they meant Long Bridge on the Plympton Road. The tram road is about 1.5 miles long, and the inclined portion was very steep. Laden trucks were let down with a long rope which passed around the drum at the top of the hill, the other being connected with the empty ones at the bottom. The laden trucks descended by their own weight and pulled the empty ones up, the velocity being checked by the brake at the top. The full ones had descended about halfway when the coupling iron of the first truck broke, and the rest descended at a frightful speed, so fast indeed that the eye could hardly distinguish them. The man was standing on the level part below with the 2 horses, waiting to take the trucks after their arrival. He at once perceived that what had happened, and took the 2 horses into the shed which is on the siding, expecting the truck would keep on the main line, which had a curve at that spot. The curve, however, was doubled up, and the wagons rushed into the shed, one over the other. The man saved one of the horses and was in the act of saving the other when he was knocked down in the attempt.
By 1858, Lord Morley wished a Dartmoor gauge tramway to bring down the China clay from Leamore. By this stage, the canal had been abandoned to be reverted back to a leat. This meant that it was quite in order to bridge the crossing over the canal. At this point, 3 routes merge. The Leamore tramway meets the tramway from Can Quarry, albeit unused by this time. The main Tavistock line was constructed in the 1850s, and lastly the canal, or by this time the leat, followed the same route. The canal at this point is approaching a recently constructed level crossing over the Plym Valley Railway, operated by railway enthusiasts. The canal and tramway continue on, but today the visitor is obliged to cross over the Leamore level crossing. The railway is on the site of the original 1850s Plymouth to Tavistock Railway. The advantage of the Plymouth Tavistock Railway was that it took a much more direct route Here the railway passes through a cutting, but there is evidence that the tramway and canal crosses its path. There's a small bridge under which the canal re-emerges, and further along the path a single sleeper set has been left in place, indicating the route of the tramway. We are quite close to Keoghoe now, and it's here again we lose sight of the canal, but this time for the last time, as it passes back under the Plym Bridge track and formerly the Plymouth Tavistock Railway.